am Dr. Scott Bonn. I am a criminologist, author, and producer of a show that I now tour nationwide, Serial Killers with Dr. Scott Bonn. And my expertise is in the motivations, thinking, and behavior of serial killers. So, Serial Killers with Dr. Scott Bonn is a one-man event featuring me and my experiences, my direct contacts, interactions, profiling, analysis of very diabolical and infamous serial killers like David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, Dennis Rader, the bind, torture, kill strangler, as well as the Long Island serial killer, allegedly Rex Heuermann, who I profiled, who was then an unknown killer back in 2011, and my profile proved to be actually 100% on point with Rex Heuermann when he was arrested. Now, my show consists of two acts. Act number one is where I take the audience inside the minds, the evolution, the progression, the thinking, the fantasies, the hungers of these very heinous individuals, case by case, very in depth, unique experiences and insights that really only I have through my direct interactions with these individuals. And then after a short intermission, we come back and we do the live interactive aspect of my show, which consists of a Q&A session where in a very rapid fire fashion, I try to answer as many questions from the audience, anything that they ever wanted to know about serial killers. And the entire show lasts approximately 2 hours, and it's a multimedia event featuring also clips, interviews, and even AI reenactments of my actual discourse with serial killers. This is not a lecture, a college lecture, or a dry TED talk. It's truly interactive in that I bring the audience into the experience and I try to literally let them go inside the minds of the serial killers based on my actual interactions with them. So this, when I say it's a theatrical experience, there are elements of it that are dramatizations, reenactments of my actual interactions with serial killers. So it's as if the audience is there with me at the very time I was interacting with these individuals. So I'm bringing them into the room, if you will, so that they can actually experience these individuals and their thinking almost firsthand. I have been interested in human behavior, thinking, motivations ever since I was a kid. And I was always drawn to even monster movies where there was a monster who seemed to be the misunderstood monster, the Frankenstein, the Dracula, the ones that seem to have almost human characteristics, and that fascinated me. And as I evolved and went off to college, I was torn between studying marketing and media versus criminology. And I ended up studying both. But for the first 20 years of my career, I actually worked in the media world. And it was there, particularly in the 1990s, that I saw how certain real life killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, like O.J. Simpson, the Menendez brothers, the Andrew Cunanan, who shot Johnny Versace, how they became what I called celebrity monsters, larger than life, and almost eclipsed the killings themselves or the victims themselves, and they were very much demonized, turned into, like, as I said, celebrity monsters. But then, we have to remember that these individuals, despite their horrible behavior, they are human, and I was compelled to try to understand the human beneath the monster, and after 9/11, I was working in New York yeah, during 9/11, and I decided after a soul-searching experience emanating from that to go back and study criminology and to get involved in criminal justice and take this interest a step further. So, upon getting my PhD and becoming a college professor, I then began in depth to explore the thinking of serial killers, these, terrible individuals who became the celebrity monsters, as well as the public's fascination with them. That led me to write a book called Why We Love Serial Killers: The Curious Appeal of the World's Most Savage Murderers, that did extremely well. I'm humbled to say, both among the public as well as at universities. And that became the basis for the show that I now do, because what I try to do is debunk so many of the myths and stereotypes about serial killers, explain that they are not one-dimensional boogeymen monsters. These are real people, believe it or not, and to try to explore their thinking and how they could evolve and become individuals like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. So I take a more sociological look at this, a more in-depth look at it than you are going to typically find in true crime stories that basically treat these individuals as if they're, one-dimensional boogeymen. There is a fine line between information, education, and even entertainment. Because let's face it, people are paying money to come to see this show, and they want to be entertained. But at the same time, it's important to do it in a way that does not glorify or sensationalize the subject matter. And I have been told, I've done this show now about 66 times across the country in different cities, and I've been told that I do a very good job of walking that line, at that fine balance between the two. Because the last thing that I want to do is in any way sensationalize the Ted Bundys and the Jeffrey Dahmers. Because as I always remind my audience, we all know the name Ted Bundy. I mean, you don't even have to be a true crime fan in the United States to know the name Ted Bundy. Everybody, knows that. But he had 36 female victims. They had names, they had families, loved ones, communities that were destroyed by this individual. And it's important to remember their names and to focus on them and the horrors and the destruction that he did. And so I always remind my audience that we need to go back to that. We need to focus on the harm done and not the glorification of these individuals. So I go out of my way to try to emphasize that. After spending a couple of hours with me, I hope they leave with a more profound and complex understanding, or an understanding of the complexities of serial killers, that they are far more nuanced than they're often depicted as these one-dimensional monsters. But at the same time, I hope they also leave with a reduced fear of the unknown, and to understand that these individuals can be explained. It is possible to explain them, and hopefully along the way, I debunk the many, many myths about them. And so that is really my objective. I want to send them home feeling better about all of this, and hopefully with a bit of closure, and as I said, a bit more in-depth understanding and reduced fear. That's really my hope. My entire tour is listed the nationwide tour, all of the cities, dates, and links to purchase tickets around the country on my website, which is docbon.com, docbonn.com. And I also am very active on Instagram, and my handle there is at docbon25. And I'm also on TikTok, which is at Real Doc Bond, and on Facebook, which is at Doc Scott Bond. So I use those platforms to disseminate information, talk about stories that are in the news, crime stories that are in the news, share more information about this topic. So, yeah, I certainly encourage people to follow me in my work. And I look forward to seeing everyone on February 12th.